Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. My name is Maxime Kennison. I'm the chair of the Department of Anesthesiology here at UCLA, and I welcome you all to the residency program virtual open house. I think we are scheduled to spend the next 2.5 hours together. You're going to meet a lot of the faculty in the department, the leadership of pretty much all of the missions that our department is serving. You'll have the opportunity to meet with the chief resident, to have some breakout session with the residents in the department. The first thing I'll ask you is don't be shy. Make sure that you ask absolutely all the questions you want to ask. You'll see that our department is a pretty large department who is very accomplished, and you'll get the chance to meet a lot of leaders who are national leaders in all of the mission that we serve. I just want to say a few words about the department and the things we are proud of when it comes to our department. The first thing is that our department is committed to the growth of everyone in the department, and very committed to the growth of our trainees and especially the residents. We want to be seen as a department that is going to give the opportunity to each and every one of you to find at the end of their training the career that you want to have. I know that you could train pretty much anywhere in the country today and you could find a job at the end of your training. At UCLA, when you train with us, you'll be able to find the career you want, whether you want to be an excellent clinician, whether you want to be a leader, if you want to be a teacher, an educator, if you want to be a researcher, if you want to be committed to your community and serve your community, you'll be able to achieve the career you want to achieve. Another key mission of our department is that we want to give back to the community. So we want to train those physicians who are going to be committed to giving back to the community and serving the community that you're from. And then we want to train you to achieve this goal. And we have a track record of success in this goal. And finally, I strongly believe that the organizations that are going to deliver the best care to their patients in the future are the organization in the department that take the best care of their people. And so we are committed to your well-being. We are committed to you being part of the department, to be supported. Doesn't mean that we are not going to go through challenges. Every department, every residency program, every faculty go through some challenges at some point, but we'll provide you an environment where you can bring up your issues, you can share your issues with the leadership, and we are committed to work together in making your training experience the best experience possible. Finally, our department is committed to research. We recently had a T32 program. We have our first year with T32 fellows in our department. So you have a pipeline of opportunities to develop your career as a clinician scientist in our department, and we have a very large portfolio of opportunities in research. With that, I'm going to leave you with all the leaders of the department, including the residence leaders. And I'm going to introduce the next speaker, with Dr. Judy Turner. Dr. Judy Turner is our Vice Chair for Education. She oversees all the education program in our department, from medical students, residents, fellows, but also the development of our faculty and helping them become the best teacher they can be. And before becoming the Vice Chair for Education, Dr. Turner was the Residency Program Director for many years. She has a lot of experience with education, and she's going to introduce you to the department. Enjoy the time with us, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening for some of you back east. Thanks for joining our call. Just want to let you know that this is going to be a bit of a whirlwind introduction to our department. And I want to thank Dr. Kennison for kicking off our meeting. This is a 4th annual virtual recruitment that we're doing here. And we're excited to be able to share so much of our department with so many of you. So again, my name is Judy Turner, Vice Chair for Education. Been with the department in one capacity or another for a little over 20 years, and hopefully we'll be here a lot longer. Dr. Canison stole my thunder a little bit and really kind of explained already our mission. The mission is underscored with regard to what we are really trying to do in education and what's going to really impact you as trainees potentially in our department. And we've spent a bit of time crafting this statement that we really hope is not only reflective of what we're doing, but of what we're striving to do. So that is not only training people to be exceptional clinicians, but to provide compassionate and culturally competent care, and to be committed to the principles of Jedi and addressing disparities in our community, engaging in team-oriented and supportive leadership. We think that's very important for anesthesiologists and physicians across the board. Not only doing research, but doing impactful scholarly work. And we think that's really important. And we're excited actually about the T32, and I'm sure more people will be talking about that. And then finally, we really want to be fostering the education, not only of our own, within our own department, but of healthcare professionals across our network. We have a very large, not only department, but a very large health system. And we're very, very committed to educating everyone here. You may or may not know this, but UCLA as a hospital and a health center has been in the U.S. News and World Report's top hospitals for several decades now. And once again, #1 in California, #1 in Los Angeles this year. And our program, our particular program in anesthesiology, has been in the top 10, I think, since they started keeping these rankings. But we are really proud of this. And it really sort of speaks to the world-class nature of the training that you can do here. Our residency leadership is very committed to you, and you will work with many of these people if you come here. And we'd like to just kind of show this as kind of a broad swath of people who are going to contribute to your training. And so the top picture, the top left that you'll see here was from our last graduation. I think it was our last graduation. Yes, last graduation. And so not only do you see some of the people you're going to meet here today, including Dr. Canison, who you just met, but we have people from our education office, our program leadership, and so on and so forth. And then on the right-hand side, we have our chief residents. We're very excited to have 4 chief residents this year, and you'll get to meet most of them today. I'm going to let somebody else talk a little bit more about what the roles of the chief residents are in our department, but we do consider them as significant leadership. Our residency program is made up of about 5 people right now, not including all the people in the executive leadership of the department. But Dr. Buckley is our program director and has been program director for, I think this is his 4th year, starting his 4th year. Dr. Buckley was associate program director before that and has been a part of our department in some capacity or another since about 2006, I want to say, quite a long time. Dr. Mayo Bowie is his associate program director, and she and I think joined faculty pretty much around the same time. So she's been here as well quite a long time. So we have a lot of people that have been very committed to this department and very committed to education for quite a long time. Dr. Jason Lee, pardon me, hang on one second here. Dr. Jason Lee is our associate program director. He really emphasizes didactics and curriculum development, but he's also more recently begun helping me with our faculty development programs. And so we're really excited about that. Dr. Umar, who you'll also meet shortly, is our associate PD for resident research and is a very, very prolific clinician scientist and a mentor to many, many people at all levels of training and education. And then lastly, Dr. Satya Patel, who is actually one of our internal medicine colleagues, and he's our APD who helps us run our medicine-based prelim year. We're a categorical program. He's helping us run our medicine-based internship, which is primarily at the VA. And he is a great addition to our team as well. So this is our residency education office, and the staff there are led by Lucy Mendez. Lusalva has been with our department, I think, maybe even longer than me, a very long time. She's very committed, and she oversees everything that has to do with resident education. She works very closely with Areli Gonzalez, who is our associate residency program director, and who is really responsible for organizing today's event. Karen Larinaga, helps with our didactics and medical students, and Delana Lay is in charge of schedules and coordination of schedules. And so it does take a village, and we have a big village to make sure that that all of your needs will be met in your training. This is some contact information, which you can get to through our website. But if you want to start Googling people now, that's one way to do it. Do want to point out, though, the resident information, we are still working on updating our information from our recent graduates. So you will have to look down 1 year to the current senior class is listed as CA2 still. We're working on that. So by the time we start our formal recruitment interviews and so forth, that will all be updated. Our resident leadership is very, very engaged, and as are our executive leadership. So we just wanted to give this as a highlight of one of the things that we do every year. We missed a couple years with COVID, but we made up for it by having multiple events last year. This is an event that's held at our Vice Chair for Clinical Services, Dr. Michael Sofer. It's a real passion project for him, and it's the annual substance abuse dinner. And really what we do there is we bring not only our trainees and our executive and residency leadership, but we also invite our residents to bring a loved one, a family member, a friend, to come learn about the challenges and struggles that may face people in our department and people in our specialty, because we know that there is a high risk in our specialty of substance abuse. And so it's really to raise awareness and to meet people and to provide contacts for anyone who may be concerned about this. So this is just an example of the kind of events that we will do here, and let you know that this is the kind of stuff we've been doing this for about more than 20 years, because I did it when I was a resident here, and I know that they were doing it for a while before then. Anyway, so this is some of the people you're going to meet. And like I said, we're going to let you talk to a little bit of everybody, and then we'll do breakout sessions with a large group of residents, and I'm sure you'll have a great time with them. So for that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jack Buckley, our program director.
So I always like to start off a little bit about who we are. We have 27 residents per year, so it does put us on the larger size for residency programs. We have 10 fellowships in pretty much anything you can think of. I think it's very useful to know that our fellows are generally used for the residents' benefit. So in other words, you don't compete with the fellows for cases. When you do cardiothoracic, you'll do with a fellow in the room, but the fellow's not there to actually learn how to intubate or do the A-line or the central line. That's left. All the procedures are for the residents, and the fellows there kind of for the big picture. And I think that's really important, that the fellows are there to kind of help teach you, not take away good cases. We have 157 faculty, 10 attending physicians, and another 15 examining physicians. Those next two categories are basically board certified anesthesiologists that do their own cases and don't work with residents. We have about 51 CRNAs, and then any given day, we probably have another 15 or 20 faculty that are working solo without residents. So for example, tomorrow I'll be doing my own cases. So on any given day, about half of the cases are done by residents and the other half are done by others. And I think that's really important because it lets us pick what we think are the most educational cases for the residents, and then the rest of us will fill in the gaps. We have 10 NIH-funded lab groups, and Dr. Amar will probably tell you more about that. That does put us in the top funding every year with the NIH. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the recruitment process and how we do things. I think we're fairly unique in this, and I chair the ASA Program Director Advisory Group, and I'm on some various committees of program directors in different national organizations. And I've actually given a few lectures on how we do recruitment. And of all the program directors I talked to, I don't think anyone uses as many faculty to review files as we do. It's most common that usually a program director will have maybe one or two other people and they look at the files together. But we have 30 plus faculty that will review your application. And I think this is really important because by using a large number of faculty, we can actually look at your entire file as opposed to just having someone doing a really cursory look. And this lets us do a very detailed, holistic review of your application. I do want to address the program signals. I think that's something that I think everyone's very confused about. Our intention for the program signals is to start anyone that sends us a program signal, we will review those applications first, and we'll use that group to actually offer interviews. So if you're interested in us, I think sending us a program signal will get you, kind of earlier in the group. And it'll probably will increase the odds of getting an interview compared to someone who doesn't send a program signal. What do we look for? The simple answer is we look for previous success, but it doesn't mean everyone is going to be the same. So some people just do the classic high school, college, medical school route and just do really well along the way. Some people take a little roundabout route and work somewhere and do some interesting work. And then others will take, some time and do research and just do really exceptional research. And I kind of like that combination of different people that have had different paths, but they've all kind of excelled along the way. And to tell you a little bit more about the interview day, the way we do it is we'll have each applicant will be interviewed by 4 people. 3 will be faculty, and then 1 will be a chief resident. And on a given interview day, we only interview we interview 7 medical students a day. So compared to most of our peer programs, that's probably one of the smallest interview days you guys will experience. And I think it works out well for us because it really gives us a chance to get to know each applicant compared to if we had a larger group. And then we'll also hold multiple resident sessions. So the day before, everyone will get to meet a group of residents. And then we'll also do numerous sessions throughout the interview season, just to give you a chance to meet our different residents, because people ask us, what is our strength? Personally, I think our residents are our strength. And I try to give you as much exposure to our residents as we can. These are our benefits. Very happy about these because I think everyone's well aware that living in Los Angeles is not the cheapest city to live in, but I think our salary does help make it more manageable. So it starts at about $85,000 and it peaks at about $93,000 for our PGY4 residents. In addition, they get $3,000 of meal allowance. People like to ask us, how is our cafeteria? I think I've been at many hospitals and you can ask our residents. I think we have one of the best cafeterias around. When you're not at our primary sites that don't have the food plan that we have, you can actually order food through Uber Eats up to $25 a day so that you can actually have access to food. There's a relocation reimbursement, as you can see. Our health insurance is just classic Blue Cross PPO. We pay for presentations at conferences. Another thing that I think is very special is after being on call, if you're fatigued, you can actually take Uber home and then Uber back another day to come back to your next shift, and the hospital will pay for it. So instead of having you drive home after a shift that you're tired and potentially falling asleep, we'll use the Uber system and the hospital funds it. So it's something I'm really happy about. Another thing I wanted to highlight that I think is really important is we've created a global health equity pathway. So instead of just sending residents to different countries and maybe doing a week of anesthesia care for patients, we want it to be more robust. We want it to be, you do go to those countries and provide the care, but we also do didactic programs, both for our residents, but also for the physicians at some of these other countries. We can use some of our expertise and actually educate others. We do research projects with them. We do QI projects with them. So it's not just simply, providing anesthesia care, but it's actually hopefully making ourselves better, but also making our peer institutions at other countries better. And these are the 7 residents that have been selected this academic year. They're going to be going to Ethiopia, and each of them will do 1 month elective in that country. And on that note, I'm going to send you to my colleague, Dr. Maya Bui.
Hi, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Maya Bui. I'm the Associate Residency Program Director. I'd like to give everyone a super warm welcome this afternoon. Congratulations to each of you on Zoom for being in the final years of medical school. This marks the transition to residency where it's more hands-on care under the guidance of mentors. Our goal, or at least one of them, of the residency leadership, is to give you exposure to cutting-edge clinical training. These are the sites that you can see here on this slides where our residents will get clinical exposure. Our first one, the top left, is Ronald Reagan Medical Center. At Ronald Reagan Medical Center, each floor, from the 3rd floor to the 8th floor, has at least one ICU where our residents take care of transplant patients, congenital heart patients, OB patients, as well as there's highly advanced interventional radiology cases and cath lab cases. We feel strongly that you should have a choice in the practice But as far as the residency, you should have the breadth and depth of cases and exposure. The second hospital in the center top is the Santa Monica Hospital. It's 2.5 miles due west, kind of, towards the Pacific Ocean. And this is where our regional and orthopedic teams live. Similar to Westwood, this site has a main hospital as well as the ambulatory center. So that gives you a little diverse experience just in one place. Olive View Medical Center is the top right, and this is a 355-bed hospital that serves much of the San Fernando and Antelope Valleys with outpatient clinics. The bottom left is the Children's Hospital of LA, and it's a standalone peds hospital, another resident favorite for rotation. Long Beach Memorial Medical Center is the one in the middle, lower, and it boasts one of the highest volumes of OB in SoCal. The VA, bottom right picture, is the LA Medical Center, serves the veterans of Los Angeles. So you can see that our residents get a lot of exposure in different locations. This here is an important slide. There's a lot of pictures, and many of them you've already met in the top, but it actually explains kind of the philosophy of our residency program. So when you guys are hitting your interview season, unfortunately, virtually, you're going to want to know what is the philosophy of the residency program. And this kind of explains a little bit about it. There's resident representation here in this educational steering committee we fondly called ESC. We meet once a month. And in rain or shine, COVID or not COVID, we were able to meet most of the times. And basically who comprises this committee is that there's chief residents who you'll get to meet and peer selected class representatives that meet, and they're on the bottom. So you meet our chief residents, there's 4 on the bottom left, and you see 6 other residents, and that kind of builds out class representatives from the rest of our 3 years. And what we do as a philosophy, as a program, is that we actually want to hear from our residents. And so if you're a resident in any of your classes, just send anonymously an issue, a concern. It could be anything, and your class representatives have an obligation to kind of bring that up at the steering committee. A lot of things have come out of this committee. It has been, call room issues. It has been valet parking for home call. It could be, didactics. We want to do reverse classrooms. This is, I think, a few years ago how we started developing workshops. They wanted more hands-on because there's a lot of information on the internet. We wanted more workshops. And then now we want to go back to didactics, too many workshops. So, we'll go in cycles, but basically whatever the residents want to speak about that month, they are fully encouraged to speak to, bring up with their class reps. Just to mention, Dr. Michael Sofer, I think he's the third on the right. I have a picture of everybody's faces on the right. But Michael Sofer, he is the Vice Chair of Clinical Affairs, and he's super important to be here at this meeting because he runs a lot of the schedules, which of course is a big part of residents' life. And also there's also Dr. Joe Hong, these 2 people you won't meet today, but are heavily involved. He's our Executive Vice Chair. And when Dr. Kennison is busy, Dr. Joe Hong will show up. And Dr. Vanderwill is the top right, and she was our previous chair and who guided us through the pandemic, and is also actually recently won a teaching award, I believe, like last year. And so a lot of these people are here, and we're very interested in listening to what our residents have to say. Now, not every single time will we have an answer, but we certainly want to hear about it and do our best in solving some of the issues. So this here shows that some of our resident highlights that, you go through residency and you want to produce good results. So this is just the last, I think this summer, our ABA basic exams. This is our current CA2 class, and we had 100% pass rate when they took it at the end of CA1. Oh, and within that class, I guess there's also 5 of the residents scored top 10%. So we're really super proud of that results. So with the strong combination of clinical exposure, the strong mentorship, and the didactic curriculum, we do place well in our fellowships, and they're both East Coast and West Coast, as you can see, and that's important for you guys to know. So where will you guys be, have reaches to when you graduate residency? Next slide. And it's also important to know that our graduates are recruited to super competitive private practices as well as academic institutions around. So now we will continue to our resident research highlights with Dr. Silvan Umar.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mayabui. So welcome everybody. I hope you're having a good time, getting a lot of info. I'm Dr. Omar. I'm the Associate Program Director for Resident Research and Scholarly Activity. So basically, my role involves getting residents involved in research, helping them find mentors and mentorship, and basically doing matchmaking of mentees with mentors. And I also accompany them a lot of times to research conferences. I help them get research time and dedicated research time for residents during residency. These are some of the pictures from the previous conferences and resident and medical students who basically did research with us, and some of them are already residents with us. So we can go to the next slide. So here, this slide shows the resident presentations, highlights of resident presentations at the American Society of Anesthesiology conferences in the last few years, and the Western Anesthesia Residents Conference, which is a very important conference for all the residents. It's organized by the residents for the residents, and they're like highly competitive. I think about 18 to 20 West Coast programs. And our program has always done really well and won a lot of awards at the WARC and ASA. So we're very happy that this year we have a lot of presentations at ASA, and including the best of basic science and best of clinical research sessions. So please, if you're at the conference, you can come and talk to these residents who are presenting at these prestigious events, and also poster presentations, case reports. So our residents are doing really well. We can go to the next slide. So in terms of the resident research pathways, we have two pathways, and the information is listed on the website. And feel free to ask me directly by email if you have any further questions. The first pathway is the anesthesiology resident research pathway. So this is a regular 4-year residency, so it doesn't add any extra time to your residency duration, but you get significant amount of research time. So this is tailored towards residents who have done a lot of research as med students or undergrads, or have a master's or PhD degree, or they may just have a lot of interest in research and have some publication or history of being involved with research. So basically, my role is to get them mentorship, help them with getting dedicated research time, and keep track of their performance. And a lot of our research track residents go on and join academic anesthesia as faculty. We'll go to the next slide. And then we have the scholars program, the anesthesiology resident scholars program. This is a 5-year program. So compared to the research pathway, this adds an extra year, mainly a research year. So that will be the 5th year. So you can see all the information here. We are very excited. We recently got the NIH T32 grant funded in the first attempt. And so that will be supporting a lot of the research. And even before the T32 grant, we were supporting our residents with departmental funds, research funds, and our residents have gone on and become academic anesthesiologists, physician scientists. So 1 to 2 applicants per year will be accepted. I think currently we have 3 NIH T32 fellows on that grant. There are financial incentives as well, $10,000 stipend per year, starting CA1 year onwards. And so more information is found on the website as well. We'll go to the next slide. And this is the T32 Fellowship. It's basically a grant from NIH that ensures that the research track residents can be recruited as fellows. It's almost like a postdoctoral training towards the end of residency. And typically, these are candidates who will end up becoming academic anesthesiologists and will compete for grants from FAIR, NIH, etc. And this grant is led by Dr. Mansoor Iqbali, who's the director of the Physician Scientist Program, and Dr. Kennison, who's the chair of our department. And there are a lot of faculty members. There are like a lot of pillars of research, so you can find that information on the website. And I'm sure a lot of research falls under anesthesiology research. So there are a lot of mentors who you can find the list on the website if you're interested in joining this program. You can go to the next slide. All right, with that, I will introduce Dr. Jason Lee, who's the Associate Program Director for Education and Curriculum Development, and he'll talk to you about resident education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Umar. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have a little opportunity to talk about some of the education opportunities here at UCLA. I just wanted to highlight in this kind of title slide with the pictures that our learning doesn't just happen in the classroom for didactics, but we do a lot of simulation. So we get you all involved with simulated care. We'll do flipped classroom where residents are giving lectures or kind of leading didactics for their fellow colleagues and peers. And even once in a while, we have a faculty or two host a rooftop session and do didactics on the rooftop of their house. So just as an overview for our didactics, we do these weekly didactics on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5 p.m. So all the residents have protected time from their clinical responsibilities to attend didactics. And oftentimes these didactics are separated based on their class. So the CA1s will have one dedicated lecture series, as well as the CA2s and CA3s. Sometimes there is a combination or different permutations of all the different classes for larger events. Oftentimes for the first 2 years, the didactics will be kind of clustered around monthly themes with associated reading assignments to kind of help build that foundation in clinical basics. We also do some theme-specific simulation sessions spread throughout the year. We also hold several research sessions as well as a scientific evening. Dr. Umar helps to lead a lot of these efforts, as well as several of our other scientific physicians. We also have a series of professionalism workshops, some risk management series. We have visiting professors that will come multiple times throughout the year to give grand rounds, and we invite several of them to also give lectures to our residents on the Tuesday before. And then in addition to these, we have several different longitudinal series that run throughout the year that can either be class specific or for the entire residency. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a following slide. And we are still in this hybrid of in-person and Zoom for our didactics. We do request that all of the residents who are on site or are at the nearby anesthetizing locations to kind of show up in person. And for those that are off site, they can Zoom in. So I mentioned that kind of the first 2 years, we have more of like monthly themes throughout the year for each class. So as you look here, you can see some examples. For the CA1s, it tends to be a lot more of the kind of the basic concepts to build the foundations of understanding anesthesiology and the medicine behind it. And a lot of it kind of helps gear them towards preparing for the basic exam. And then the CA2 year tends to be more specialty specific, which gets them prepared for when they start rotating through their subspecialty rotations. And so they'll be doing more advanced rotations such as cardiac, thoracic, neuro, you see here, pediatrics, et cetera. And I also highlighted here that we do have several longitudinal series that do run throughout the year. So we do have journal clubs that are class specific, and we do about 4 separate sessions per class throughout the year. And so a lot of these sessions will be kind of co-facilitated with a faculty member such as Dr. Umar, but we really try to kind of get the residents engaged to help kind of lead the discussion on various key papers and to help develop analytical skills and discussion and kind of dissecting various key journal articles. We've also kickstarted, Dr. Snock and I, she was in a previous slide, who's also in charge of the global health programs here. We kickstarted a health equity curriculum with several members of our Jedi subgroups, and we've done several modules throughout the year for the entire class. And we do roughly about 4 modules per year, and it involves all the CA1s, 2s, and 3s. We've been working as well on several quality improvement sessions. We used to do it for all the classes, but we've since kind of narrowed it down to just the CA1s. having 4 introductory sessions to kind of build that foundation. And then they will revisit them as a review when they're CA3s. This is actually useful because it'll help the CA3s when they graduate, and they will get tested on some concepts of QI for their applied exam. Finally, we have some of our intensivists lead various POCUS workshops where we actually hire standardized patients, and you get to practice and utilize various ultrasound equipment to do different types of POCUS training. And those are also class specific, and we do about 4 per class each year. And then for our more advanced residents who don't really have the monthly themes, they tend to do a lot more longitudinal series. So for our senior residents, they do a lot of work with practice management as well as with leadership. And so they actually meet with various leaders, both in our department and outside our department, within the hospital and within the medical school, to kind of learn kind of the higher executive functions of how medicine is run, how anesthesia is run, and just understanding a better idea of the perioperative home as well as the future of anesthesia. We also do a series of oral board and OSCE review for the CA3s, and we try to do about 8 sessions throughout the year. That's very popular amongst our senior residents. And we have these sessions with our actual ABA board examiners, such as Dr. Buckley. And we also even do 2 mock orals every year. So we invite our alumni as well as our fellows and our senior residents to do mock orals dedicated with various senior faculty. The last thing I just wanted to highlight is that several years ago, we created this resident education committee that I run with various residents from the different classes. And so we meet on a quarterly basis to work on curriculum redesign. And so, all of these things I've mentioned to you was not done by myself alone, but it's a team effort. And, I really like to get the residents involved in their education from the ground up. And so, all these ideas come from us brainstorming together, trying to trial different ways of doing didactics, looking at what other institutions are doing, or, trying to pioneer different efforts. And I listed some examples here. But it's a nice way for residents who are very interested in med ed to get involved early on. And I do take that feedback in real time and make changes to the schedule accordingly. So something else to look forward to if you come here. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is going to come from a different session on Zoom, Dr. Elliot Higgins, who's our Director of Health and Wellness. And he's going to talk about resident well-being.
Thanks, Dr. Lee. Hey, everybody. My name is Elliot Higgins, and I'm the Director for Health and Wellbeing here in our department. And I just want to take a few minutes to describe how UCLA approaches well-being for our whole team, and specifically for our residents. Who's ever could join the slides could just click next, and it will pop up for me. To happen. Awesome. So we know that promoting healthcare professional well-being is a really critically important issue. And we're also aware that national data shows that residents are perhaps the most at risk for burnout syndrome. And we take the well-being of our residents really quite seriously here at UCLA. So here in our department, we work to enhance well-being and attenuate burnout for everyone in our department. And we embark on this mission in a pretty progressive, structured, and data-driven format with broad representation, including residents. Specifically for our residents, our goal is to foster as supportive of a learning environment and clinical environment as possible, and also to do what we can to promote a very strong and organically happy, fulfilled, and inclusive community. Next slide, please. And then one more click for 2. One more. Awesome. So it would really take too long to truly introduce the structured approach that we're going to take to enhance the well-being of all of our people here in our department. But nevertheless, I wanted to briefly introduce these 2 schemes just to demonstrate that we do, in fact, view well-being very comprehensively. So when taking on well-being initiatives with our new well-being program, we're making sure that we're paying attention to all aspects of well-being. And we do that by categorizing initiatives by domain of work life. And this helps ensure that we take a very holistic view to well-being, and that we're not neglecting any area of work life when we're working to enhance the well-being of our team. We also make sure that we prioritize initiatives to enhance well-being and to eliminate burnout. And this pyramid from the literature is just a pictorial example of how we think about this. And really, the big takeaway that I want to leave you all with is that we really think about well-being broadly. We know that fostering a supportive work environment takes a very thoughtful approach. We're proud to do just that. Next slide, please. And then one more click for me, and then one more. Awesome. A little specifics about the organization for our new wellbeing program. So we have representative wellbeing committees that share a similar structure and framework. And one of these committees is the Resident Wellbeing Committee, which I'm proud to say has been around for quite some time. These various committees based on different identities for the residents, the trainees, CRNA Wellbeing Committee, Faculty Wellbeing Committee, etc. These make up our overall wellbeing program. And these committees will contribute representation to and be overseen by an overall steering committee. And this committee is going to help coordinate wellbeing efforts across our department so that our workplace can become as robustly supportive as possible, and so that we can all enjoy our time with each other when we can outside of the operating room, for example. These committees are going to work across our department within working groups like support. So as you can see here, the support one's highlighted. This is going to do things like, apologies for the overhead announcement, just do things like make sure our peer support program is very active and robust to help people after stressful or challenging clinical events. There's going to be teams working on perioperative or workplace initiatives, which are really going to be working to help workflow ergonomics and make our workplaces as supportive as possible. And then community building teams that are going to be working to promote a strong and psychologically safe, healthy, and inclusive community. Next slide, please. So, in summary, we take this very seriously. We promote resident involvement and leadership when it comes to well-being and burnout. We take a very comprehensive and inclusive approach to well-being, and ultimately our aim is to create as supportive of a learning and clinical environment as we can. Whether it's at work, at the beach, at Dodgers games in Los Angeles, we're very proud to be aggressively and sincerely promoting the well-being of our residents. And then beyond our department, there are UCLA-wide resources that we can take advantage of, and we do when necessary. And then one more click screen. This is just my email and some final parting pictures. Again, we take the well-being of our people very seriously. If anyone has any questions at all about any of this, I'm happy to do a deep dive and double click on any of these concepts to just go through in some more detail about how we approach well-being. And with that, I'll pass the baton.
So our next speaker is Dr. Whittington. I believe he might be busy downstairs taking care of a patient. So unless I see him joining us on Zoom.
I'm good.
Oh, there's Dr. Whittington.
Good.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Robert Whittington. I'm Vice Chair for Faculty Development in the department, and I also have a role in the Dean's office here. I'm also Senior Associate Dean for Faculty Development, Mentoring, and Recognition. If you could forward the slides so that I can see, so that should be just me. So basically, just want to kind of just review a couple of things. I am not able to see the slides, but I want to make sure that you understand that faculty development here is really instrumental in terms of the department. And I'll go into that a little bit as I go through the presentation. So this next slide talks about the key faculty development and career advancement goals for the department. And as you can see on the slides, it's first and foremost, we want to just make sure that we can facilitate the mentoring and sponsorship environment in the department. And also, basically, we want to continue to provide additional guidance in terms of the promotion system, which can be quite kind of at times muddy here. In most academic centers, it can be quite confusing. So we want to make sure that our faculty can continue to move their careers forward. And we want to also continue the growth of our department on a national level and international level in terms of the societies. For example, over the past year, we've had 6 faculty members that have been elected to the Association of University Anesthesiologists. That's one of the most prestigious societies in anesthesiology in our specialty. We also want to increase leadership training for our faculty, both intramurally and extramurally. And we want to provide support for all our departmental, educational, as well as Jedi and well-being missions, which you just heard from Dr. Higgins. Last but certainly not least, we've been working with residency leadership and faculty, as well as 2 CA2 residents who are MBA trained. And we're working on trying to introduce leadership training into the residency here. Now, it's in its embryonic stages, but we are making progress, and our hope is to eventually develop a track focusing on leadership. And if you go on the next slide, I can show you, this is an article you should be seeing on the screen from Harvard Business Review, which basically, you can look at this on your own time, but it's a very important article because it basically focuses on why essentially doctors need leadership training. Now, I know you're very early in your careers as medical students, but trust me, residency goes very fast. You go from residency, next thing you know, you're either an attending or doing fellowship training. And it's very important that you at least start to think about leadership training. Some of you may be doing MBA programs in your undergraduate level, but that's very, very important that you think about this. If you have time, look at this article because it's really wonderful. It even suggests that leadership training really should even begin at the medical school, if not certainly the residency level. Now, the next slide that I want to show is basically my last slide, but it talks about the career benefits of faculty development at UCLA. And the bottom line is these formal programs create a better environment for faculty engagement. They lead to optimal clinical conditions, that is for patient care, for teaching, and for research environments. Also, it leads to continued growth of UCLA anesthesia, both on a national and international level. And I just talked to you about the AUA, the Association of University Anesthesiologists. Again, it helps to create the highest academic anesthesiology standards. And also some of our trainees, and again, I told you, residency goes very quickly. So some of our trainees, we have a pipeline. They stay on faculty here. And this really, really helps. If you have a great faculty development system, it helps to make a better transition to being an attending, to being a faculty member. And certainly last, but certainly not least, it creates a better environment for networking and sponsorship, which is going to be very important. If you have faculty that are engaged, if you have faculty that really enjoy their jobs, they're going to make better professors, and they can act as better mentors towards you while you're training here. And this will help in terms of networking and sponsorship as you move forward with your own careers as your residency training finishes. So again, this is just one small aspect. As you can see, it's a total team effort here, but we really take faculty development very seriously because these are going to be your teachers. These are going to be your professors. And if they're engaged, they're going to just be better at their jobs, and you're going to benefit from that. And with that, I'm going to go extubate soon, but again, you can find my email addresses. You know, we share this information, and if you have any questions, you know, this is my 28th year in academic medicine. So I think I have an idea of, you know, about the specialty. So if I could be of any assistance to you as you navigate, you know, this residency search, please feel free to reach out to me. And that's about it. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Dr. Whittington. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Lucero, Vice Chair of EDI.
Hello, I'm also going to be joined by Olivia Viejo, who, if we can spot perfect, there we go. I love when technology works. So we're the Jedi team for the Department of Anesthesia. I'm going to advance this slide here. Oh, there we go. All right, so we're going to go over sort of big picture with justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and also touch on specifics for the Department of Anesthesia. So this is really an overall goal of the both the health system and the School of Medicine, the David Geffen School of Medicine. And so we have both a Vice Dean of Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion on the School of Medicine side. And then on the health system side, we have a head-eye lead, so a health, equity, diversity officer who works, they work together along with the chairs of the departments and our Jedi leads on different missions throughout both the health system and the School of Medicine. And so we're going to touch on what we're doing. So here is at David Geffen School of Medicine, we have our diversity statement. And I will let you kind of look at that as I talk about what we have done. In the March of 2020, this was adopted, and throughout that time, they have continued to advance within the Jedi office, both recruiting a Vice Dean of Jedi, and then developing, you can see there the link, the anti-racism roadmap, and along with building out different aspects within the Jedi space and the Jedi space, and collaborating with the clinical departments and the basic science departments. And we're going to touch on a couple things of what they've done and how we interface with them. So here is your two Jedi leads within anesthesia, and we work together to support the mission of the Department of Anesthesia and collaborate with the larger health system and School of Medicine. So the way we've set it up is we have Anesthesia Jedi Committee working groups, and you can see there's the recruitment working group and the members and what the focus of that is. And then we have our retention working group, and you can see the mission of that working group and the working group members. And some of those folks you will have already talked to or can see have already presented to you today. And then we have our career development group and the members and what our focus is for the department. And we have our education working group and what we're focused on within the education. And our last working group is our research working group with our members there. And you've already heard about the amazing work we've been doing with research and development. So there's a lot of intersectionality you can see between the different members that have already spoken to you today from our department and what we're doing within the Jedi Committee. So the structure of the Jedi Committee is we have quarterly meetings. We do general updates, working group spotlights. So each quarterly meeting, we have one of the 5 working groups present on work that they're doing. And the working groups meet separately and discuss action items. And we have continued to develop and grow this platform. And we collaborate both within the disciplines and again, across the campuses. So we're going to highlight a couple of the things that we do. So Olivia and I were tasked with coming up with a proposal that we submit to the School of Medicine in the Dean's office. We, of course, did this in collaboration with our committee and the different working groups. And you can see some of the ongoing initiatives that we have and that we're working on. These were presented at a Jedi symposium. And to give you an example of how important this is to us, every one of the clinical chairs and basic science chairs took a whole day out of their schedule, met with the senior leadership, including the dean, the vice chancellor, and the provost, the executive vice provost, to spend the day reviewing what each department is doing. And the Jedi proposals were evaluated in a similar fashion that we would for, an NIH grant review. And we were all scored. And we have, things that we are going to work on, of course, and things that we're going to continue that are going well for us. And so we just wanted to highlight, I think has already been mentioned, the health equity curriculum. And we have our microaggression upstander simulation training, and you can see the point people there. And I'm going to jump down and have Olivia mention, because I know she has to go back to this meeting, but I'm going to have her mention the restorative justice.
Yeah, so something that we're working on implementing school-wide in the School of Medicine, and then obviously, also on the department levels, is restorative justice, and putting that into practice as a way to address harm that may have been caused in various circumstances or situations within the academic setting, as well as just doing community building or addressing things that happen on a larger scale. And it's just a way to build community. So it's something we're working on implementing school-wide, and we look forward to just having that rolled out.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. And I think that's going to work really well with our microaggression upstanding simulation training. We're really fortunate to have in the Department of Anesthesia and in the School of Medicine, Dr. Wang is very involved with and directs the simulation center. So we're doing some really innovative projects and bringing in the restorative justice, and where Olivia is actually leading up that effort and as a member of our department. The other thing I was just going to mention is we do have a HRSA grant. There are the two PIs, me and Dr. Moreno, who's in the chair of family medicine. And we do a lot of intersection with events that happen, networking, as you mentioned, as Dr. Whittington already mentioned, the importance of leadership training. We do a lot of networking events and a lot of pathway programs. And so those intersect a lot with the residents and the fellows. And so we're always excited that we're synergizing and amplifying the work that we're doing, and this Center of Excellence is part of that. So I think that is we've got a couple more slides. I'm going to turn this over to Olivia for these resource links that she had put together.
Yes, so we have, we have our internal web pages for the Department of Anesthesia, and this is where we have information about our Jedi committee if you're interested in joining. We do have residents or folks from the education office participating in a lot of as well as staff, CRNAs. We have people all across the board in the department participating, so we have information here. Some Jedi links throughout, so links for resources that are campus-wide, within School of Medicine, health system. That's where all this lives, in addition to some important Jedi dashboards that are widely available. We also have our Jedi related publications posted here. Oh yeah, and then that's kind of just a preview of what that data looks like. But that's all housed in-house on our new platform called C8, which may have already been mentioned, but that lives there for all of our department members to access.
All right, and our last slide was just a quick overview, a snapshot of the different things that we are involved in and affinity groups. This is just kind of a sampling of what we do and what we're involved in throughout the year with the Jedi division. And I think that's our last slide. Oh, wait, we got one more, our book club. We added this. We do the book club, which actually corresponds with the book club that the School of Medicine does. And you can see those are the people highlighted there at the top. We kind of lead the book club. These are the cast we've done, some of us in our current book this season, that the residents receive a free copy of this, and all of the faculty and staff, members of the department come together, and we have different book club schedules. And so we're doing Poverty by America is our current book. All right, next we have our chief residents. All right, thanks everyone. It was great to see you virtually.
Let's see how it looks.
I don't want to do it.
Not sure. Yeah. The last one is just like bobbing heads. Yeah.
We can find you slides too. Hi, everybody. We just want to introduce ourselves real quickly. The three of us are in person, and then Jennifer Nom's actually on Zoom. So I'm Chase Barker. We are all one of, I guess, 4 of the current chief residents of this class. You guys want to introduce yourselves too?
Yes, and my name is Mariana Gomez. I'm also serving as one of our co-residents or the co-chiefs.
And I'm Sarah Rasta. I'm also one of the chiefs for this year.
And I'm Jennifer. I'm one of the other chiefs as well. It's a pleasure to meet everyone.
Jen loves this program so much that she's doing this even on her vacation. So just know that she's very excited to be here, even on top of that. Real quickly, I know we want to have you guys have enough time to ask all the questions to Dr. Mayablu and Dr. Buckley. You also will have breakout rooms with all of the residents. So if you have any questions at that time for any of us, we are also very happy to answer any questions at that time as well. So just real quickly, why we love UCLA. I think a big thing is the case variety, and there's a lot of complex cases here, which I think at the end of our 4-year training or 3 years in anesthesia, we feel very well prepared going out into, jobs or fellowship from the good training that we have here.
Yes, and then we also get to work with excellent attendings and teachers, some of them nationally recognized as well, that contribute to our great teaching. And we also love being in LA. So I'm very excited that we're going to get to meet everyone, and looking forward to meeting you all so we can kind of go into depth as to why we like this program so much.
And you guys can feel free to reach out to us at any point during this interview process. You'll get our information, and we'll be in some of the breakout rooms as well too.
Wonderful. With that, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Buckley and Dr. Mayabu, I think, for questions.
Strange, right? Here.
I think we're good. So we're going to go through as many of the questions as we can in the next 22 minutes. And then we'll stop at about 5:25 just to give about a 5-minute break. And then we'll start the breakout rooms at 5:30. During the breakout rooms, it's just going to be resident led. All the faculty will disappear. Feel free to ask any questions you want. You can even change your name to phone, because I want you to feel free to ask our residents as many things as you want to know about the program. So we received about 250 different questions when you guys registered. Clearly, we're not going to go through that many, but I tried to pick a representative sample that I saw over and over again. So if we don't pick your questions, it wasn't because it's not important. It's just we had to pick something. So the first one for myself, and we'll ask Dr. Mayabu to answer the same question, is how long have you been at UCLA and why are you still here? So I came in 2006, finished my training at 2009, went away for 3 years and came back in 2012. And I've been here ever since, and I hope to be here forever. I have no intention of ever moving if all goes well. And why I like it here is, frankly, it's the people. I've worked in 3 different states. Dr. Mayabu and I have both worked on the East Coast. I think we think the West Coast is a much nicer, friendlier place. I like coming to work every day and knowing that people are going to be just nice and friendly and treat us well. So that's really what keeps me here. What about you, Dr. Mayabu?
So, hi. So I did my residency in New York, and I did a year of private practice on the East Coast and then another year of private practice on the West Coast. It's a little bit of a non-traditional approach. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I always wanted to do big cases. And I settled in LA with my family. And I've been in LA now since 2008 and at UCLA since 2009. I've mostly been on the liver transplant team. And so it's been great because I've had the experience of being on both coasts as far as being an anesthesiologist, also the experience of being in academics as well as private practice. And I have a huge respect for private practice anesthesiologists. And I was maybe a little different than Dr. Buckley. I was probably going to stay here for 5 years and be like highly trained and figure out what else was going on in LA. But I just fell in love with the liver transplant team, fell in love with the nurses, fell in love with the people, the department, the HAs, PSSTs. And then Dr. Turner recruited me maybe 7 years ago or so, or it seems like 5 years ago, maybe, to be on the residency education team. And now I have more and more friends and community here. So I'm also going to be here for a long time.
And then the next question for the two of us will be, what are you most proud of about the program? And my answer is, it's just the end result. I love watching the residents when they come to us as interns and they're still trying to figure out how to turn on the anesthesia machine or change the CO2 absorber or get the silly hotline tubing to actually work and get the machine stop beeping. And then by the time CA3 year runs around, they're doing some of the most difficult, challenging cases. And I love hearing from them 6 months later, or even better. I've gotten to know a lot of the leadership in some of the major groups around, and they call me and there's like, your resident that you sent us, they're amazing. And they spend like 5 minutes telling us how our graduates are just incredible anesthesiologists. And that's kind of why I like doing what I do and just seeing, the progression of these incredible residents we have.
And for me, what's most proud of our program is that I personally feel like there's a lot to do in life. Like I could entertain myself doing lots of things, but if I'm coming to work, it's got to be something that's pretty amazing. And starting with giving, patients new organs, coming and working with Dr. Buckley and making, future doctors, it's actually adds to my own life. That's already pretty amazing. And I would not do this unless it added to my life. And watching the residents grow up into fully independent practicing anesthesiologists has been so rewarding. And I just keep getting texts from them about how amazing things that they're doing and pictures that I just shared with our current chief residents. And it's just very rewarding. And I think watching them, it makes me the most proud.
And then we're going to address a couple of questions related to didactics. One of the questions I saw was, how do we prepare residents for the different boards they have to take in the oral boards? I think that's one of the things that's very special about our program is by having multiple actual oral board examiners. One of our faculty, Dr. Cole, has been pretty much the president of every society that exists, including the California Society of Anesthesia, the ASA, the ABA. Now he's the president of the National Patient Safety Foundation. So, he's also an oral examiner. So when he talks to the residents about his experiences, he can really tell them, what residents do that do well in those exams and also when they struggle. Myself, I'm another one of the oral examiners. I'm also the group leader for one of the groups that writes portions of the OSCE. Now, clearly, I'm not going to tell the residents about the questions I wrote. That's a great way for me not to be an oral examiner anymore. But I can kind of tell my perspective and say, when we're writing the exam, this is what we're shooting for. This is what we're trying to test. And I think hearing that, perspective, I think makes it easier for the residents to actually take it and be prepared. Dr. Maibui, can you address how we do orientation and kind of help the residents transition from interns to being CA1s?
So I think I spoke a little bit about like a philosophy of a residency program. So you guys are virtual, you guys are trying to get the most information. And so really go out and the transition to CA1 year really shows a little bit about our philosophy of our program. And so in your intern year, you spend 1 month in that first 12 months in our program. And so the other 11 months you're learning, bread and butter medicine, and that's your job. But in that 1 month of anesthesia, you come to UCLA Ronald Reagan Medical Center and spend time in our operating room. The first 2 weeks, you're paired up with a buddy. A lot of people have requests and we try to honor that. So you're spending 2 weeks with a co-intern, and you're matched with one faculty that has volunteered to spend the first 2 weeks with them. So that's kind of like a little bit of a team that you see start walking through the OR starting around March. We have 4 months. So March, April, May, and June, you'll start seeing groups of these 2 interns that are buddies and then a faculty member that are kind of showing them the way. So that's 2 weeks. We want you to have the sense of like having someone ask questions to that you feel comfortable with, a co-intern, and then having someone consistent for the first 2 weeks. After those 2 weeks, there's a third week where you kind of shed your buddy and you're one-on-one with different attendings. We just don't want you to be working with one attending for 4 weeks. And so you get to meet a little bit more of the department slowly. And those are the rest of the third and fourth week. When you come back in July, you still have a little bit of time where you're, one-on-one paired. And then when you're comfortable, then we start double covering you at some point. And so we feel like that's kind of strikes the balance of having support, but also being challenged in a progressive manner so that you can have adjust to, taking care of critical patients and critical procedures. And so that is how we transition our CA1s.
So another question I'd like to address is how are residents assigned cases to ensure they reach the ACGB case numbers? That you can't hear it, but that was Dr. Turner laughing in the background because we will show the data in our interview day. We pretty much have double, if not triple, the minimums for every category. And frankly, we actually have probably more than that, but I think the residents get tired of doing their case logs. And I think they've figured out if they've tripled the number of epidurals they need to do, they just stop charting them. And we've actually done some studies with our informatics divisions to actually prove that point, that there's actually more cases than they're actually charting. So we have no issues with any of the cases. And I think part of that is because we put the residents very early into some pretty substantial cases. Our kidney transplants are pretty much CA1 cases. A lot of our Whipples are done by CA1s. I've had some of the CA1s in August just shocked the type of cases they're already doing. But that's what I believe in, is I'd rather put the residents in very difficult, challenging cases, but then give them substantial support. So that they can do those difficult cases. And then as they progress in training, the attendings will become less hands-on and let the residents have more independence. Another question that was asked is, what is the CRNA involvement in, and how does the CRNAs impact the residents training? I think this is a very important question you always want to find out, because you need to know, are the CRNAs there for your benefit, or are you competing with the CRNAs for cases? Because some programs, the CRNAs might actually do what we'd call good educational cases. The way we do it, I mentioned earlier on that the residents cover about 50% of our case volume. We assign the residents first. So we will literally work our way through every resident we have. And then when we run out of residents, then we will start assigning the CRNAs. And then we will assign the solo faculty. Then we will assign our staff physicians. But the residents will always be assigned first, and they don't compete with anyone else. You also want to ask the same question, what about SRNA students? How are SRNA students used? There are no cases where residents will work with SRNA students. We used to have that at the VA when they did cardiac. There was an SRNA student that would kind of be there, but that's literally stopping tomorrow. It's not even been announced yet to the residents, but I received an email from the chair of the VA that they're going to stop having the SRNA students there. That was the only time we ever had an SRNA student in the same room as a resident. But the SRNA students exclusively work with the CRNAs, and we only have a couple of them. We do not have an SRNA school, so we have no obligation to train them, and therefore they will get whatever cases we assign the CRNAs to, and you will never compete. And I think that's really important. I think the education of the residents should be the highest priority of the department and not others. So Dr. Mayabuhi, what about, do residents get enough specialty cases? And what about the fellows? Like, are they competing with fellows for cases?
So as far as cases on specialty, so most of your second year after you've gotten that first year under your belt is full of specialty rotations. And as you can imagine on Ronald Reagan and all the offsites, there's tons of specialties to take advantage of. And so you'll definitely get a lot of cases on those rotations. As far as fellows on those rotations, and as well as just in the main OR, you do not have to compete with cases for fellows, as mentioned. They're in general assigned resident and fellow in one room. And so it's not going to take away from residency learning or education. There's, on a different level. And so you guys are not competing for cases. The rare cases would be to, if there's the one day that the resident is off, for example, a liver transplant, you can't be on call 7 days. So there's a days where the liver transplant anesthesia fellow will take over. And that's going to be the day off for that resident. And also in the nighttime, we want to make sure that there's the call burden is also shared by the fellows. And so in the middle of the night, for example, the fellows may take their independent call, but there's certainly enough cases, and you are not going to compete with fellows on any cases, especially specialty cases.
And I think that's really important to find out when you interview at different programs, because a lot of our peer institutions, it's common for the fellows to do a case and the residents to do a different case. And we don't like that system, because frankly, if you're competing with a fellow, the fellow's going to win. And they're going to do whatever the better, more educational case is. And that's why during the daytime, the residents always work with fellows. So the only fellows that work without residents are PEDS fellows. And the simple reason for that is, a thoracic fellow, a liver fellow, a cardiac fellow, an OB fellow, they're not there to learn the procedures. They're there to learn the big picture, being an attending for that specialty. None of them are there to learn how to intubate. On the other hand, the PEDS fellows are actually there to learn how to intubate a NICU baby, how to place that IV in a little tiny baby, those kind of things. And frankly, we have so much PEDS volume. The residents a lot of times are asking, can they do less PEDS, not more? So we're more than happy to let the fellows actually not work with the residents in those cases. One of the questions I've been asked many times is, can they do less PEDS cardiac? We have one room that does little babies every day. And resident the other day was like, can I just do a simple heart in an adult, instead of doing a 2-kilo baby having their heart cracked open? But I think it's really important that you're not competing with, like I said, SRNAs, CRNAs, or fellows, because you really are our highest priority. Another question that we saw, what are the career choices for our recent graduates? And do they do fellowships versus jobs? The breakdown, a couple of years ago, it was about 40%. My guess is it's going to be a little bit lower this year, for the simple reason, I think everyone knows the job market's pretty incredible right now. And I think people are realizing, if they don't do a fellowship, they'll get a pretty amazing job, and they're questioning, why do they want to take that financial hit to do one extra year of training? And then for the question of where do the residents end up, pretty much wherever they want. if you exclude the last couple of years, because right now you can pretty much go anywhere. Before the job market was so amazing, we had just incredibly good track record of getting residents jobs wherever they wanted. When I left this program, I had to go to Virginia for a couple of years. I wasn't sure if anyone would know the UCLA name. It was no trouble at all. One of our residents recently wanted to go to New York. I wrote her a letter and she got job offers from the 4 major academic centers in New York. Previous years, residents want to go to Atlanta, no trouble going to Atlanta. But most of the residents, I think, a good chunk tend to stay in California, either in Los Angeles and Orange County or up to the Bay Area. And they have no trouble getting in the most desirable groups. Frankly, some of those faculty in those, or the attendings in those private practice groups, actually come to UCLA and do their volunteer faculty for us. I think the reason they do it is they want to see our residents and pick who their next group is going to be. So it really works out well for all. If it comes to fellowships, one of the questions was, what kind of people do, what kind of fellowships they do? Pretty much whatever they want. And it's pretty evenly distributed across the different specialties. But in general, our residents get, if they choose a specialty, as long as they apply to enough positions, they can get pretty much close to 100% will get into that specialty. So we have a really great track record. And we do publicize that list of where our residents have gone, because if you look at it, if you're going to take that financial hit of doing a special fellowship, you want to be at a top 10 program. And all those programs that were listed on that page were top 10 programs. I'm just kind of flipping through some of our other things. So Dr. Maibu, how would you address the question about what is the culture of the program?
Well, it's
That's a hard one to answer.
You'll have to ask our residents, but since you're asking me, I always describe it as we're a pretty big program. And the last time we went to SAAA meeting, which is the program directors meetings in October, a few years back before the pandemic, there was 6 programs over 100. And so we've increased our size since then. And so I would describe our culture as a large program with a small program feel. We tend to overshare a lot. We all know a lot about each other and we spend a lot of time together. The pandemic was super hard, but we had like virtual movies. We had like people were working out in different rooms. And so I think we have that kind of small program feel. You'll have to ask the residents, of course. The other thing is that we kind of try to encourage the open door policy, starting from the ask, where, just come and stop by when there's nothing to talk about, right? So that's kind of what we want. Of course, we're here when you have something to talk about, but we want to be here when you have nothing to talk about. That's when all the fun stuff starts happening, right? The other thing is I would describe our culture as, I've been all private practice, East Coast. I paid a tail to start at UCLA. That's another discussion. But basically the strength of our program and basically the culture is really shown when something goes wrong, and I think you guys are all deciding to do anesthesia or thinking about doing anesthesia. And so we're all kind of like, looking for some excitement here. And so when something goes wrong is really when you see the strength of our program. And being from the East Coast, I can definitely say that is not the strength of many programs. And so because you're going to be chasing the hurricanes in residency, like you definitely want a program that is stronger when things go wrong. So Dr. Buckley, that is how I would describe the culture of our program.
And another question that follows up is when residents have maybe a difficult case or something really traumatic happens, how does the program support them? And I'm thinking of a case I remember when I was actually traveling on vacation, we had a particularly bad case, and you actually organized a session to support that entire team.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, things are going to happen during residency. Let's be honest, this is going to be challenging 4 years, and you want to not only be around the people that you want to be around, but you want to also have them motivate in the way that you want to motivate. And so I think when you guys go out on interviews, you guys are also searching for the right program. And so you have to ask questions and ask them, what happens when there's a clinical problem? What happens when someone fails the board? Is everyone going to have a Dr. Lee back there? So ask when things go wrong, what happens? So that's the culture.
And I guess the example I was thinking of is when I was traveling, there was a particularly traumatic case that was very difficult for the entire team. And Dr. Maibui actually went to our behavioral wellness center and brought in some support staff, who have expertise in dealing with things like that. And she gathered the entire care team together and use the resources to kind of let everyone, sit down and just kind of talk about that experience. And, I think when you have a very challenging clinical case, that can be very helpful, because you don't necessarily want to think about that on your own.
Yeah.
And I won't claim to have expertise in managing that, but, we have so many resources in this hospital system that if something particularly bad happens, we can bring in others to kind of help the providers get through that.
Exactly. I think he's referring to, without naming specifics, there was some OB patient that took down not just the OB floor, but the cardiac team, the main OR team, the team captain. And it was just one of those, like, one out in 10 years that you'll remember. And I think the one advantage, I've been all around, lived 3 countries by the time I was 10 from all over. But specifically East Coast, West Coast. And what's really unique about UCLA is that there's so many things right here on this corner of Westwood. There's the medical school, the business school. I've gone to office hours on undergrad campus. There's so many resources. And if you're someone like me or Dr. Buckley, where you can motivate your resources in the right direction, you can really do something amazing. And so I think you just recognize, listen, and then people are hurting, and you have to just jump and make a plan. And I think that's what our program, not just me, but everybody here does.
So one of our last questions, I can't resist quoting, they wrote, "Traffic in LA is crazy. Where do most residents live?" So ask the residents later, but I saw a chart one time where all the residents were located. Most residents live probably within about 4 miles of the hospital. I think Santa Monica is very common. Pretty much, if you pick UCLA and you draw a 4-mile circle, that's a good chunk of where people live. I live 9 miles north of here in Sherman Oaks. It takes me 25 minutes to get here in the morning. No matter what time I leave in the afternoon, I'm generally home 25 minutes to 30 minutes. So we have bad traffic, but the good news is I don't go on the freeway ever. It's actually kind of nice. I don't get on a freeway Monday through Friday. And I just kind of drive in, and a good chunk of our residents actually ride their bike. Every day in the resident library, there's at least 2 or 3 bikes in there. When I was a resident, I never had a parking pass. I rode my bike 4 miles every day to the hospital. Another question was, are there residents who have families or young children? At any given time, there's usually at least 1 or 2 pregnant residents. And I think about 25 to 30% of our residents, by the time they get towards the end of their residency, will have kids. And a good chunk of them are also married. It doesn't mean everyone is married with kids, but it's certainly not uncommon. And talk to the residents later. I think you'll, especially if that's relevant to you, we can certainly help you connect with residents, and you could just kind of see, what is it like being in a program like this with a family and kids.
I say most residents live pretty close to palm trees. So being from the East Coast, it's really nice.
We do like the fact that we're about 4 miles from the beach, and about a 2-hour drive to some pretty good skiing, and a 5-hour drive to amazing skiing.
That's right.
On that note, it is 5:25. So I could keep talking, but I don't want to take away from our residents. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break. This will give our wonderful administrative staff a chance to break you guys all out to the different breakout rooms. And then, like I said, feel free to change your names. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to see what you guys ask questions about. Ask them anything you want, because I'd rather residents tell you the truth and the wonderful things about our program, but the things that are maybe, I think, mostly wonderful, but there's always going to be negatives. Figure out what those negative things are so that you know exactly what you're getting, and you can figure out, is this the perfect program for you?